In the headlines, one political commentator believes it's a dead heat between the government and the opposition heading into 2020, what will be a crucial year for political campaigning. Guy Joseph says the government made significant gains throughout 2019 and the government is focused on consolidating those gains for 2020. And the Police Welfare Association says it hopes that 2020 will bring resolve to the impacts investigation for once and for all.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good evening. Welcome to our special year-end newscast, Reflections. We are speaking to key figures and commentators to get their assessment of the year 2019 and expectations heading into 2020. The coming year is expected to be one of intense political debate and maneuvering, given that an election will be constitutionally due in 2021. So we will begin there. Politics. Our first discussion was with John Peters, a former chief engineer in the Ministry of Infrastructure and a commentator whose opinion pieces are always popular on social media. Peters spoke candidly about both political parties and gave them equivalent ratings for performance. He says the ruling United Workers' Party has a tall order ahead to ensure that it gains some ground on the issue of healthcare.
I believe the government had an excellent opportunity when they won the election to deal with healthcare as a particular item. You had a situation where St. Jude's was in an advanced stage. You had financing already in place for it from the Taiwanese. You had the Owen King EU hospital more or less finished, and with funding approved in that particular financial year in which they won the election to commission the hospital. You had a World Bank funded project on a major health facility in the Brajoli area in Dennery. So you had three major healthcare infrastructure that could have been completed within the 3-year period and would have positioned the party in terms of its expression of concern for healthcare. That was an opportunity lost. I think that was a major mistake that they made as a political party in not pushing through on that platform that was set and that platform in which they were given in healthcare. To this date, we have not yet commissioned the Owen King Hospital. We have not completed St. Jude's, and the hospital or the health facility, the polyclinic, that is funded by the World Bank is in bushes in the top of Brajoli. Total mystery to all of us. So that, I believe, was a serious error, a serious blunder, political error, that they had an opportunity to capitalize fully upon, which they missed.
Is there enough time to gain some ground on healthcare? I mean, we saw spokesperson for the administration, Nancy Charles, honestly admitting, which I think some people were surprised by, she appeared on a program, Hot 7 TV Hot Seat, and did apologize and indicate that the government should have done more, should have pushed harder on the St. Jude reconstruction project. But I think the big question for many people is there now time prior to, let's say, a 2021 election to gain some ground and regain, I think, the trust of the people when it comes to healthcare? Because I think for many people, it affected the trust between the government and the citizenry, that they did not deliver.
Whether there is enough time to recover, obviously, will be dependent on the ability to complete those projects. And from the standpoint of completion, it will be quite a challenge.
Because we're hearing St. Jude's is 18 months.
St. Jude's 18 months with the best will in the world. I will say categorically, I doubt it will be commissioned before the next election. The one at Dennery, God knows what is the situation there. It's started, just abandoned in the bushes. And there may be a possibility that we would have Owen King open before the next election. So there's a lot of work for them to do in terms of regaining that trust, regaining that confidence level, and reversing that damage that has happened over the last 4 years. It's a tall order.
Peters rated the government's performance at 5.5, maybe 6 out of 10. He says the developments in Soufrière, in particular, have bolstered the party.
I was in Soufrière last week, and I was quite impressed with what I saw on the waterfront in Soufrière and the transformation that is taking place within the town of Soufrière. And I would say that is, in fact, a positive development in terms of intervention within a particular society, within a particular environment, within a particular constituency. So I would say that was, and that is, a very positive development that I saw in Soufrière in terms of tourism, in terms of transformation within a particular constituency.
And we also spoke about some of the rumblings about the opposition St. Lucia Labour Party.
One of the more recent developments was Dr. Ernestina becoming the first deputy leader, Alva Baptiste no longer in that position. What do you make of that development?
Well, I mean, even before the last election, there was that talk that Eunice Hilaire would have been the heir apparent, the one that would be replacing Dr. Kenny Anthony, and that he had his blessings in that particular role. So that rumor and that suggestion has been along for a long time. My understanding is that there wasn't, I would say that there wasn't really a political battle that took place between Alva and Eunice for that particular post. I think Alva really didn't pursue the election of the deputy leadership for his own reasons.
There are rumblings that it has created some tension and that Mr. Baptiste has taken a step back. Do you think that's just propaganda?
Well, I would think that he may be a bit hurt, given the fact that he is one of the more senior persons right now within the House, that rightfully should have been the one selected as deputy political leader. But one must also bear in mind that there is nothing as a deputy prime minister. I mean, deputy political leader is a name, and a futile name, because there is no constitutional relationship to the deputy political leader in governance.
By Dr. Hilaire's own admission, I think he characterized Philip J. Pierre, the leader of the SLP, as not one of the best speakers, not the most charismatic, but very good behind the scenes in terms of organization. Your thoughts on Philip J. Pierre's leadership qualities?
Well, I mean, I've met Mr. Pierre. I've known him for quite a number of years. And what Eunice Hilaire said is correct. There's a difference of style in terms of leadership from the leadership presented by Dr. Kenny Anthony. It may be a leadership that is more suited for the environment that we are in right now. Because you need a manager, you need someone who can harness energies and pool energies together. So in that regard, I don't think leadership is a significant factor in the next election. I don't think people will consider leadership as a critical decision-making process.
Interestingly, Peters also rated the opposition's performance at 5.5, maybe 6.
If you were to assess the work of the opposition from putting forward their plans, advocating throughout 2019, in much the same way that you scored the government out of 10, how would you score the opposition St. Lucia Labour Party?
Well, as I said before, I view opposition politics differently. I view opposition politics as responding with ideas. And therefore, as I said before, for the last 3.5 years, they have not really articulated, fully what are the principal differences in ideology, in concepts, in approaches to governance. And because I rank that so high, I would give them the same 5.5, 6. So both of them are in a dead heat at this point in time, as I see it.
So it's a dead heat,
dead heat.
Heading into the next election.
And I think the next year is going to be crucial. 2020 is particularly important for both parties. One has to do a significant, almost a 180-degree shift in concept. That's the Labour Party. The UWP has to do some work, particularly in healthcare, which they have received, a lot of blows over the last few years.
Businessman and former independent senator Everestus Shomari also shared his thoughts on the upcoming new year and the year gone by.
So we're expecting that there will be a lot of developments in 2020. Do you have that same expectation of the year to come?
Yes, I think it's right to anticipate or expect, I should say the correct word. It will be an election year, and I think it will be incumbent upon the government to do as much as they can to get people excited, to get new things going, projects that haven't been able to take root, that they will be able to come on stream in time for the election so that they can make a case to the electorate that they have done things and they're deserving of a second term. I do expect that. My own perception of or reaction to that is you have to go by the records. A lot have been promised in the first 3 years. I have made the comment publicly that I thought too much has been promised. And given the level of implementation of projects, that those promises were always unrealistic. And as we come to the end of the year, it's already manifesting itself that never mind how much was promised at the last budget, very little has been done. And so there isn't much happening within the country in terms of increasing capacity to make things happen in the new year for me to be optimistic about new things happening. But I imagine there will be a determination to do as much as is possible to create some new ventures and some new government interventions to give people hope and to give them a basis for making a claim for us.
That was businessman and former independent senator Everestus Shomari. This is the Hot 7 TV year-end special Reflections. When we return, I sit down with the firebrand politician himself, Guy Joseph. That and more coming up.